But something else changed in 1966 as well. And what happened was our schools removed grammar and Latin from the schools in 1966. So prior to that, at school we learned grammar and Latin. And Latin were the roots of the English language, or many of the roots of the English language. So, and my father used to call Latin the math of English. And when, in 1966, when the school got rid of Latin and grammar out of the curriculum, my father bitterly complained to the school and said that the students will become illiterate. They won't know how to read if you take those things out of the curriculum. Well, I'm going to show you exactly what's happened. It's strange that this happened in 1966 too, when the pound went to the dollar, and grammar and Latin were removed from the schools. So it's funny that is. But I'm going to just show you just how stupid and dumbed down Australians have become in a grammatical deception, or in a grammatical sense. I'm going to write Commonwealth of Australia into 3 different formats, and you will be able to read the whole 3 of them, or you will assume you can read the 3 of them. But after I've done this, I'll just explain the difference between the 3 of them. Okay? First, let's write it in English. Read that, Commonwealth of Australia. Now let's write it in ancient Latin. Now this is going to be strange. Not many people are aware of this, or aware that it's relevant today. But ancient Latin is the official language of the Vatican. That's strange too, isn't it? So I'll write that. Okay, same words. Hyphen. That's an L there. Commonwealth of Australia, written in an ancient Latin style text. And we have here, which is the 2 hyphens in between the 3 signs, or 3 words. Now I'm going to write something in Dog Latin. And Dog Latin is a corruption of the essence of the text. It's also known as the text, or the Latin for the illiterate. So it's a language that's used by illiterate people that can't read, that don't know what's going on. I'll write the same words. English, ancient Latin with the hyphens, and Dog Latin. The Latin for the illiterate, people that can't read. Now, English, these are all 3 very recognized languages. But the thing about the grammatical standing of these 3 types of written language is that they don't have any jurisdiction with each other on the one document. So if you've got a page of text and it contains English and contains Dog Latin, there is no correspondence between those 2 languages written on that paper. And that's the reason why when the currency of our nation, of our country, was changed from a weighted silver, which was a de jure or real money, into a promissory note type of a money, which is based on the United States Federal Reserve promissory notes, which is really called a company scrip, or internal accounting notes. That's all it is, internal banking notes. After that happened in 1966, they removed the grammar and the Latin from the school in order that the people start to assume that this is English. Now, you know something's wrong with that. If you saw that written everywhere and you saw a hyphen in between the words, even if you didn't know your Latin and your grammar, you would instantly know, well, that doesn't look right, there's something wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It is another language. But when you read this here, Commonwealth of Australia, without the hyphens, you will assume that to be English. And that mistake that has deliberately been allowed for you to do is actually what destroys you from standing as a true Australian, a national, or being a part of the real Australia, into coming down here into being a foreign citizen of a private foreign bank. But all of the Australians that are in here, such as the Queensland Police, the government, all the government workers and all that, they believe that they are Australians. They believe that. But grammatically, and the fact, as a fact stands, they are the account holders of the foreign United States Securities and Exchange Commission, the foreign United States Federal Reserve, because this is a registered company with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, written in dog Latin. And dog Latin, the way they make dog Latin is by using the grammatical rules of English and mixing it with the written hieroglyphic, all uppercase text of ancient Latin. And by removing the hyphens, they use the grammatical rules of English instead of the grammatical rules of Latin, which are two very different types of rules, grammatical rules of each one of these texts, in order to make it look like normal English. God granted dominion, which means the absolute authority. Dominion is the highest of authority. There's nothing greater than that. It's the majority authority. God granted dominion to man over land, air, sea, and the thing that creepeth up from below. And in the Latin dictionaries, surname means the thing that creepeth, or the thing that creepeth up from below. So man has been granted by the God of existence authority, the full authority over land, air, sea, and the surname. Now, in 1230 AD, after the Magna Carta, when the Corpus Juris was created, they created the surname, because when Justinian did it, there was no choice of being the debtor or creditor. I think the only people that could escape the Justinian plundering of Rome was to go back to Christianity. It's the only thing they could do, was to leave the state and try and go back to Christianity. But he still killed and murdered hundreds of thousands of people. So in 1230, Accursius recreated the corpus juris, or I should say perfected the corpus juris, which is really the jurisdiction of the debtors, the jurisdiction of the dead. And in the Adam and Eve story, it is the house of knowledge, the tree of knowledge, the house of the debtor. It is the jurisdiction or the legal system that exists in the tree of knowledge. The tree of life is the house of the creditor. It's got nothing to do with the corpus juris. That is probably the common law of the land, the law of the Magna Carta, the law dealing with land, which is Eden, which is not cast off into the sea. Whereas the corpus juris was the law of the sea. But because they could not force someone to leave the land or leave the creditor or leave the standing of the creditor and join the standing of the debtor, then they deceived man into doing it by offering them the surname, that's the reason why you have two birthing certificates. You have the state birth certificate, which is really the birth of the family name or the surname, which out of John Henry Doe, that is the birth of the Doe Trust, not the name, the Doe Trust. It's a trust law system, a three-way trust, debtor, creditor and administrator. So the state birth certificate is the birth of Doe Trust, the office of the debtor. But the certificate of birth, which is the certificate that is set up on your registration date, which is in my case a month later, but in your case or other cases it could only be a few days, but it's never done on the same day. And that is the birth of the creditor trust, which is the John Henry, the Christian name trust. So the John Henry name has actually been split into two entities. That's what the extract is all about, where you've been split into two, which means really divide and conquer. So when they created this corpus juris, that's what you have been born into as a child, and as a child up to the age of majority, up to the age of 21, you remain in that, being protected by the state. And the state at that time was your parents, because by the time they passed the age of majority, they stayed in the debtor state. They didn't leave the debtor state at the age of majority and go over to the creditors. They stayed in the debtor state. They had the choice of going to the creditor state, but they remained holding the surname and remained in the debtor state. And of course then registered you into the state for you to be looked after until you reach the age of majority, which is the age of 21. But the word majority means major, the absolute control, the highest of authority, which is dominion. Now the states, the foreign states from the water, from the Vatican, because the Vatican handles all of the laws of water. It is Mary. Mary means water, the sea. And the Virgin Mary, virgin means girl. Virgin is girl. And Mary means the sea, girl of the sea, which is the Vatican. So when you turn 21, you have the choice of remaining with the state and turning from a child into a thing called an adult. But that word adult comes from adulterer, adultery. And that means that the word adultery means the worshipping of another deity apart from where you come from, or the God of existence, the first God, the real God. So when you hit 21 and you remain in the state and you don't leave and go back to the house of the creditor, if you don't drop the surname and go back to your Christian name, and if you don't know your date of birth of that Christian trust, then you won't find it. You will remain in the house of the debtors. And what happens there is that the usurping military, which is really the administrator, where you can go back and direct the administration, who are the magistrates that sit up on the bench, rather than you go back and administrate them or direct them on what you want done with your estate. If you remain in the house of the debtors, then the magistrates remain as the holder of the equity, the holder of the dominion, which means the holder of the complete authority over your estate. And that's why the police and the Vatican and the magistrates hold so much power over you. It's not that they stole it off you. It's that you did not claim your standing of that God granted you, which was dominion, which is the power over the credit estate. You remained in the state of the debtors. You remained in the tree of knowledge rather than turning 21 and being able to step across as the director of your estate, of your